You are tuned in to the new Old Heads Podacst, premiered every Thursday at noon at bringingdowntheband.com and brought to you by No Bad Ideas, Coleman Dental, Printfinity, and Team Backpack. Support the new Old Heads by visiting our Patreon at patreon.com/newoldheads.
Episode 98, New Old Heads Podcast. I am Major 7th. I make beats. I got the hard drive to prove it. I do want that smoke. Longevity is in front of me with the chalice. Not filled to the brim, but with a nice amount. How are you, sir?
I'm well. How are you?
Good. How's the chalice?
Looks all right.
Good. DJ Jay Diff. How are you, man? You good?
I'm great, man.
You know, I ain't even let
something like excellent. There you go.
Something like excellent.
2018 in this
I
bitch.
ain't even let that spill over, man. We're gonna be good.
No,
How are you,
straight.
man? You all right?
I'm good, man.
Is that a Printfinity exclusive, sir?
It is.
I like when you do those. We
Thank
gotta
you.
make sure we support our own local businesses, man. Get that paper.
Definitely. We out here popping tags and all
You
that.
know, I'm pro Printfinity now. Don't get it twisted.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
It's a good look on you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Indeed.
DJ Helicon is in the building. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well, sir. How are you?
Great to have you back.
Yeah, man. Thank you.
We'll start calling you Mr. Orange, not Agent Orange, because we know how that where that goes. I
Yeah.
don't disrespect you like that.
Orange with a J.
Yes, with a J.
With a J.
It's on the product right there. We'll get to that in a second. We appreciate you coming back with us, man, sitting in with us for a little while.
Yeah, man.
Episode 98. I say Dwight Freeney is 98.
Robert
no?
Mathis.
Oh, Robert Mathis. I get it confused. I'm sorry.
Dun, dun.
Robert Mathis was
There you
cold.
go.
Anything else?
Any
Any albums?
dropped 2 albums
Oh, that's a good
in
one.
98.
That's a good
The
one.
Chuck D episode.
Chuck
Suckers
D
to the
episode?
side. Y'all know you hate my 98.
Okay.
Little hip hop nostalgia. It's
Exactly.
all over the place. in
So let
this
me ask you
episode.
this.
It's hip hop nostalgia night.
It is.
Show them what we talking about.
First of all, y'all might not even be old enough to understand
And for those
the
that
history
can't
that you
see,
have. These are Yo MTV Raps. I believe they call rap cards. I can't remember. It's been a while.
you can just read the front of it.
Well, it says it says Yo MTV Raps win. It doesn't say what they are. It just says Yo MTV Raps win for all the smart people here. It says nothing about what they are. It says Yo MTV Raps win a trip for New York City and to see Yo MTV Raps.
I'm sure it's
so I
his
guess
one, man.
I
I
guess
think
they're
this is our
called.
lucky day.
Yeah.
I guess they're called a
We're going to
trip
the
to
Big
New
Apple.
York City and win and Yo MTV Raps. I guess
Trading
that's what they're
cards,
called.
man.
That's what I
We'll
was
just
looking
go
for.
with that.
Yeah, these are cold though. We can't open them because they're classic. So
Yep.
he says he has an open pack, so maybe we'll get to see what's popping. Yeah,
It might be a Chuck D in there. It might be a
what you think is in
Ice Cube.
Okay, what else?
A Nicki D.
Yeah.
Might even be a Queen Latifah. in
Might
that
even be a
joint.
Slick Rick in there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Dougie Fresh?
I'll bring the
Possibly.
open pack next time.
Possibly.
We'll flip
Okay.
through them. Assuming y'all have me back, you know.
Yeah.
What about an
Indeed.
Eric Onassis?
Nah, they wouldn't call him Eric Onassis.
It would have been an EPMD joint.
Yeah.
So maybe
Yeah.
Big
Maybe
Kim.
Erica Paris.
Big
But-
Kim.
I see what he's doing.
EPMD would
I
definitely
see
be
what
in
he's
there.
doing.
Yeah,
I see what
as a
he's
group.
doing.
Indeed.
You mentioned 98 with DMX. Which album was better of the two that was dropped?
The first one.
I agree,
It's
sir.
dark and hell is hot.
I agree, sir. That's an incredible album.
It is.
Flesh My Flesh was cold, but Jay Moore's in the building as well. I heard a sigh from him.
Yeah. He was
Um,
just riding that wave. I mean, he just dropped a platinum album. Def
Yeah.
Jam was pretty much like, why don't you do it again?
My thing
Might as
is that probably was there's no probably that was hard to do, to drop 2 albums that good in 1 year. That's a
It
lot of
wasn't
dope
as
material.
good as the first one though.
Okay, you got thoughts on that?
Well, as far as what you just said, I mean, for people who don't understand what it means to put out an album, let alone a great album,
Exactly.
and to do that twice in 1 year, not only the material, but the time and resources that are spent on doing that, and then to have the timing on your side, like trends and popularity and all, and then let alone all the other things that might be coming out at that same time. So to release 2 dope records in 1 year is virtually impossible.
And CDs were actually selling back then, so these were going platinum. Money in the bank.
I don't know what the numbers were in terms of what he did on both albums for, like a full
Platinum
year.
status.
He was platinum, okay.
Both of them.
Man, that's crazy,
Including
dog.
tour money. So
Yeah. X was
Hype Williams videos.
Yeah.
All that.
How long was X's run? What, maybe I'm talking about at that level. Will we say maybe 2 to 3 years, or am I shortchanging him when I say that?
The Rough Rider, because he kind of spearheaded the Rough Rider movement.
Okay.
For the most part. So even when he wasn't doing anything, this was the time when 𝐀𝐿 was kind of taking off. So she was the female artist to check for at the time. And then Locks left. Bad Boy went over to Rough Riders. I mean, they didn't have like crazy success like that, but
Dragon was on there. Okay.
You can't forget Swiss Beats. He was the man behind the boards then. So
yeah,
there were a couple others too. I don't remember.
In terms of the crew for
there were
the Rough Riders. All I remember
inside with Rough Riders, if y'all remember him.
He did.
But did he come? He didn't really. I remember Jim from the battles like 106 and Park,
right?
All that, but I can't remember if he actually dropped like what we would call like a debut album. Like, was it mixtape? I can't really remember.
He had
I just
an
know.
album. What it called? Speaking Chinese or something?
Well, I think that was a single.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, but they had a movement though. Don't get it.
They did.
Don't get it twisted. What would you say, Jay Moore? None
nah,
of
definitely. I couldn't tell you one song other than I speak Chinese.
Yeah, he definitely he definitely had bars in terms of that battle rap though. I do remember that.
I think
Mad
might
16.
have had the album though.
Who me?
Yeah.
I bought Jen.
Cassidy.
Oh,
Was
Cassidy.
on
Was
Rough Riders?
Cassidy on Rough Riders?
You remember Young One?
I remember.
Oh wow. Along with the fact check.
The Rough Riders compilation album wasn't bad.
Volume 1.
Volume 1.
So
Volume 1.
apparently Fiend as well.
Yeah, he came.
Fiend signed to the Rough Riders?
Also Two Pistols.
Oh.
And 𝗏𝗏.
Oh, well, 𝗏𝗏 was.
He was the main guy, right?
More of an executive though, right?
Yeah, he was an executive.
Neo, The Matrix, and Sticky Fingers.
Oh yeah, he went over there.
Sticky Fingers went over there from Onyx?
Apparently.
Well, I don't remember any of that part. It was just the stuff that you pretty much named.
That Drag On song was hot though.
Facts.
He had some, yeah.
Facts. Didn't he stutter in real life or no?
I don't even know, man.
If
he did, why are you calling out his disabilities?
I ain't calling him out. I'm just saying that makes it that much colder that he
I'm
was
just saying
nice.
that's what I heard.
Yeah, I give him credit for it if he gives him extra credit points.
Word.
Why you hating on him because he stuttered?
I'm not hating at all.
All right.
I think he was really just hating on you.
Well, I mean there's a theme
There's
there.
no hate. There's no hate.
Yeah,
There's no
there's a
hate.
theme there.
Look, if I don't like it, I don't like it.
That don't mean that I'm hating. Lonnie
I'm
Lynn.
hating.
Yes, sir.
Shout out to the South Side, 87 Cottage.
All sides.
Chicago.
Yeah. All right. So
adjacent.
All right, let's go ahead and jump in. CNN, and this is via CNN, and we talked about this prior to going on about, and this is crazy that we have to keep talking about stuff like this, so I'm just going to read the lead. It says a Dallas police officer stands charged with manslaughter in the fatal shooting of a man she mistakenly thought was in her apartment, but the prosecutor would not rule out a more serious charge. This was as of Monday. Young lady who was a police officer, her name was Amber Geiger. Her name is Amanda Geiger, I believe is her name. If I pronounced it wrong, I'm sorry. Now, I'm going to definitely butcher this name, so I apologize ahead of time. The gentleman's name that was shot and killed is 𝗏𝗏 𝗏𝗏. Did I say that right?
I'm not sure.
Okay. Well, that's Shimjan. Okay. I apologize if I misspoke. So basically, the police officer said she thought someone else was in her apartment, or she went into the wrong apartment. There's one floor above on the 4th floor. She lived on the 3rd, and pretty much mistaken this dude for, I don't know, whatever you want to call it, robber or whatever, and just shot him when she came in. I guess the door was already opened slightly when she came in.
No.
Oh, well, tell me then, because maybe I read the wrong thing. It wasn't open?
She went up to the a floor up from her house, like you said.
Yep.
She's tried to stick her key in a door that was not hers.
Didn't work. Okay, got you.
There was a mat sitting there that should have let her know that she's not at the right door, a red mat. Okay, so she fumbled around trying to get in this door. Guy ends up coming to the door. And at this time, I guess, this is what they're trying to say to kind of give her a motive, I guess.
Okay.
She warned him and gave him opportunity to, I guess, stand down. This is his home.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
I see
So
what you're saying.
imagine you waking up and you open a door
Mm-hmm.
to somebody and they're like, they end up pointing a gun at you and they're telling you what to do at your house. You know what I'm saying? That's kind of strange. And I don't know. It's a weird situation, man.
Yeah, that's crazy. And I think Jay Moore actually said as well that the type of doors that they had where when you try to enter the apartment, it'll turn red if you're not in the right location. Like it'll give you a red buzzer sign like this is not your crib.
Red
so
or something's wrong with the key.
Yeah, or
right.
something's wrong with the key. So to me, I guess that's an indication of I'm in the wrong spot. This is not my place.
So did he let her in?
I think it all happened at the doorway.
Yeah.
For the most part.
Mm-hmm.
So it's more like him opening the door and like, whoa, and she's telling him what to do.
I see.
And they're kind of trying to backplay her day as far as why that kind of transpired. But I mean, that's not an excuse, man. That's just not an excuse. They were like saying that she was, what was she working, trying to find or doing some undercover work or something? I'm not sure. But it was a long day or whatnot. And she didn't know what was going on, blah, blah, blah. Somebody's dead.
Period.
So
I heard that
there's a bigger issue than that.
She was or was not drunk.
I'm not sure.
That was
going
to be my question.
Because I thought that I had heard that she was.
They haven't released the information.
I see. No
it's
information.
Like, was she sober? And aside from that, what brings somebody, particularly who's not sober, to try to get in the wrong place? Like, I mean, it's your crib, right?
Yeah.
Like,
right.
You go there every day, unless it's like the first day she's lived there or something. Like, how does she go to the wrong apartment door or whatever and not realize it? Like, oh, what am I doing?
That's my question.
That tells me either she was A, not sober, or B, in some other like really strange state of mind that would lead her to that. That doesn't make sense.
I agree.
And even in this article I'm looking at, it says that she gave verbal commands
at my house.
Like, in my own crib, yeah.
I mean, she's lucky it didn't happen to her. Basically.
Exactly. He could have came to the door with a gun and let her have it.
And in many places he would have, like.
Terry makes a good point. Right. We see Jay more. Terry makes a good point when you actually when you flip it around and you think about the young man waking up in his own home and then hearing somebody, barking out commands or whatever. That has to throw you off. You know what I'm saying? That has to throw you off. So
I probably wouldn't open the door myself.
It's a great point. Great point. Go
Here's
ahead,
another angle that I'm reading here. Is it says that witnesses say that they heard somebody yelling, "Let me in."
Oh, okay.
So that's a different type of angle.
That is.
That's a totally different angle.
So if somebody's saying, "Let me in," then she knows that it's not her door.
Or there's someone else on the other side,
Or, there's got to be somebody else in there already. It's not like this random person that she thought was, oh, who is this in my house?
And there's an alleged picture floating around with supposed to be her and him in the picture.
Yes, her, him, and
so that's what I was going to say is, does she know this person?
Right.
To Lone's point, you don't scream "let me in" to just randomly scream "let me in" to someone's
to your
spot.
empty apartment.
Exactly.
Let me in.
Right. Come on, dog or cat.
Yeah. That's tough, man. That's tough. I hate to see that we have to continue, as we always say, to go through this and talk about these issues, but it's just crazy, man. Like, that young man is gone now based off, I hate to say it, but a judgment call. Like,
she's out on bond.
Yeah. I mean, it's not directly a. Would you consider this a police brutality?
I'm gonna say no.
You say no
because I don't know that she was off duty. I heard somebody say,
off duty.
In that case, she happens to be a police officer, but it was not in the line of duty. Just my opinion.
So maybe just.
I mean, yes, technically, it was a police officer committing I guess we're all assuming unwarranted violent crime, but it was not a matter of the job.
That's true. Yeah, I can see that. I wonder too, but if she's using her weapon that she uses as a police officer and she's abusing her power.
Or if she was making any threats about being a cop. I mean, these are all things that we don't know actually happened.
I'm just curious what you guys think about that. I don't know.
I would say I don't think it's directly related to that. I would say with her giving him orders on what to do,
right?
That kind of does relate to being a police issue.
I mean, it's definitely on the topic of people who are in positions of authority who can carry weapons and use that authority and overstepping the bounds, it's definitely tied to that.
Yeah, definitely. Because you do hear about a lot of them doing that outside of work. It's just just something that goes off in their head all the time.
It's a behavior, basically.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so I can definitely G for that.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. It kind of reminds me of a story that I believe maybe happened here, and this was years ago, but like last 10 years, about a guy who, if I remember correctly, a guy went home like at night, like after the bar kind of situate, like intoxicated definitely, and didn't have his house keys, and basically broke into his own house, and somebody saw it and called the police, and they came in, like busted in with him like essentially like passing out on his bed or whatever, and so he kind of jumped up like startled, and they shot him. Like,
that's crazy.
And I couldn't tell you what happened to the officers that happened, but I mean I'm not making this up. Like, this definitely happened. It's just been long enough.
I remember that too. Yeah.
It's been long enough that I don't remember.
And that's real unfortunate.
But it's the same type of thing. It's like, there's no checking to see.
That one I can kind of I understand that point of view. Like, if somebody thinks somebody's breaking into your home, they can't really see what's going on. They call the police out there, and unfortunately that ended up happening. That's terrible that happened, but I can definitely see that happening before I see somebody knocking on somebody's door that isn't theirs.
Yeah.
Right.
And then when somebody comes to the door and you're ordering them to do things in their own home. So
I mean, it's different stories, but I guess my point is that in both cases, you're talking about people who were in their own homes, who were essentially assaulted by, unfortunately in this case, police officers.
Right.
And from what we all understand about both stories, having virtually no chance to do anything about it.
Right.
Because aren't there, I don't know what the state laws are wherever that happened, but I know in certain states and places or whatnot, if somebody is on your property and you feel threatened, you have the opportunity to act.
This is one of those states.
Good point.
Yeah.
It's a stand your ground law, right?
It's a stand your ground, or it's kind of like there's something about it being your home, and essentially it's no duty to retreat. That's what they call it.
Right, okay.
You do not have the duty to retreat and hide and find help. You have to be feeling threatened, though. You can't just be like, hey, neighbor.
Right.
Yeah, Florida was in the news because Florida is a stand your ground state.
Yes, it is.
And we've heard stories from Florida.
Yeah, we know.
We've heard
know
some
a little
big
bit
stories
about that. His dumbass was threatening Beyonce this past week.
Who's this, Zimmerman?
Word?
Yeah.
I mean, find me a positive story about that dude.
There isn't one.
You can't
it's
find
crazy
one.
that, and I hate to wish acts of violence on anybody, but this dude is really still out here.
He is out here just being like the corniest and dumbest person alive.
Yeah,
I'll be
he's out
honest.
here.
I would have figured by now
You would have got him?
somebody would have, even if he's
It would have
not
just
dead.
came back to him in the streets, basically.
Somebody would have bumped into him by now. Especially how reckless he's been post everything.
What Jay say? Y'all killed X and let Zimmerman live.
Yes, sir.
Mhm.
That's a heavy bar.
That is.
That's a
that
heavy
is
bar. Yeah, that's a heavy bar.
That is.
Coming from a legend.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
And when I heard that, I was like, he's right.
Yep. Can't argue that.
Yeah, so
Now he out here capping at Beyonce. He called her broke too.
Oh, that's
He
neat.
called Beyonce broke.
that's a great assessment there.
Oh, that's nice.
Did he call her fat too? Because I'm like, that's like
I
the
don't
next
know.
one I'm waiting on
Did-
for
did-
his
I
ass.
don't know if he called her.
Did he
fat.
call her a man?
Knowing him, he might have. I don't know.
Mm.
But
We're just
obviously,
Yeah.
it's
this
just,
dude.
Fuck that dude. Let's move on.
Yeah, let's get I figured it's been taken off of here by now. Shout out to Education, Sonny Carson.
You spell education. Do you put a J in your education?
No.
I'm not even talking about you, honestly. I seen someone spell education with a J
This was an adult?
on. I think yes,
Oh, for real?
I believe it was on Facebook.
Like EDJ or EJ.
EDJ.
Yeah. They just added a letter.
Edu.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they're saying education. So they think
Education.
they think that's like a J that you write, not just like how you say it.
Yeah.
That person needs to sign up for
for some education
for Patreon
Definitely.
for our Patreon site, so we can work with them.
I also seen 𝗀𝗡𝐲. So
𝗀𝗡𝐲.
This is all today.
Like
mind
ALV,
Oh.
like ALV.
ALV.
𝗀𝗡𝐲.
I think we was talking about this before they got here. Remember when I was like,
Yeah,
who puts
yeah.
an L in avocado?
Wow.
I seen all of this today. I am a witness.
We got to get y'all signed up for Patreon so we can work with y'all on some exercises.
Phonics.
Yeah.
We'll
remember
send
the
out
old-
worksheets if you want.
You remember
There's
the
a
old
lot.
school
There's smart
phonics
people in
books?
the room too, so like we can really get you right.
Yeah, we'll get y'all right, man. Sign up for Patreon. We go through some phonics exercises and
Definitely.
get y'all right. That
Or
old,
your children.
or yeah,
So you can say children.
you can say
That's cool.
children. Yeah, we grew up. I grew up here in Children, so I'm cool with that.
We're gonna
All
talk
right.
about some music.
What? All right, so on a much sadder note, and this was crazy. Actually took me back for a little bit. Like I had to sit back and kind of gather myself and think about this one. But Mac Miller was found dead. They're saying overdose. Nothing's come out yet, but this is just what the reports say. In his home, he was dead actually upon arrival of the police or whatever. He was 26 years old, and the thing is, we just talked about his most recent album. I believe maybe 2-3 episodes ago.
I think it was the
few weeks ago.
same week that
Travis Scott
came out. Yeah.
Yeah, it was that
That's
same
right.
week we talked about that. And this one bothered me. I'm not gonna say kind of it actually did because Mac was one of the artists that I actually depended on to be creative, to have a good outgoing personality, for that personality to spill over into his music. His albums grew. Like I became a fan back on. When I initially got introduced to him, it was on Somebody Do Something Like That with who produced that joint?
I don't remember.
I had to look it up, but that joint was hard.
What's it called?
Somebody do something.
I'll look it up.
So I was like, okay, so this dude is actually pretty nice. I saw a couple freestyles or whatever. So I started jumping in on the albums, and every album after that, including that album, I'm like, yo, he actually has heat. Like he's creative, he takes time. I can tell he put a lot of effort into his music. Like, and it was very musical, strings, orchestration, moving parts. Like, it wasn't just rap. Like, it was deeper than that. Like, I was this one really bothered me because this is one of those guys that I couldn't wait to see what else he was going to do next. Like, whenever I heard a project, I was like, yo, I can't wait to see what the next phase of his career is going to be and where he's going to take it musically, lyrically, just creatively overall. So, yeah, this one is... This is a tough blow for me. Lone, what are your thoughts?
Well, first off, that was produced by Flying Lotus.
Flying Lotus. Yeah, they laced him. They laced him on that one.
Yeah, it hit me too. We were on the road going to North Carolina when I read the news, and the first thing that I thought was, is this real?
Yep.
And I was like, surely it just kind of, I don't know. Like, it was a shock. Even though Mac has been very vocal in his music and in general, we know about his substance abuse issues and his even mental health issues related to that. I think it was tough. I still didn't believe it. So yeah, that's all I have to say right now. I mean. It sucks. Just as he's somebody that I watched. He turned into an artist that I liked.
Yeah,
like he wasn't somebody when he first came out. I was like, "Ooh, Mac Miller's dope."
Mm-hmm.
I heard his early stuff. I was like, he's a kid. He's got potential. Like I see where his head's at. He's given props to the legends. Which was something that we didn't see very often. And even with everything that's come out. We've been sharing a whole bunch of like commentary from different artists on Bringing Down the Band's Instagram of what different artists are saying about him. Fonte said something, 𝗀𝗲 said something, Flying Lotus, Thundercat, Dame Funk,
Robert
Glassman. This is just
Primo,
what we share.
Jazzy Jeff,
Ninth Wonder.
Yeah,
and these are just what we've been sharing, and it's just amazing to see all these people come out and have these words for this guy. And Mac sucks to say, an incredibly talented artist.
Yeah.
And he wasn't just a rapper, he was a musician. But he also seemed just like a really good guy, that had his own demons that he was going, trying to get out of. So yeah, I mean, it sucks. That's really all I have to say about that right now.
I can dig it. Jay Diff, your thoughts?
It was just real weird, and you know what I'm saying. I think everybody here kind of feels the same way. I think it kind of affected us all similar, very similar, because he's a musician, and we always preach about being a musician and growth and things like that. Even when Swimming came out, our commentary was like, he's dope. He just keeps improving. I'm ready to hear what's next. You know what I'm saying? And for somebody to just be gone like that, it's almost unbelievable, and it's almost like he was a homie. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
like,
I agree.
I know we don't know him, you know what I'm saying? But you kind of grow to kind of know an artist when you listen and get familiar with their music and like their style and like all the artists that he worked with. He wasn't just out here trying to work with whoever was popping, whoever was popular. He was working with actual musicians and people that knew what they were doing out here, pretty much improving his craft. I mean, he became Larry Fisherman,
Right.
the producer. So that was another side of him. A lot of people didn't even know that was him actually producing a lot of that stuff because it was under a different moniker. But I don't know, man. It was even weird going back listening to Swimming. Like, I was on a plane headed to North Carolina, and I was listening to Swimming. And, it's weird because the album cover is him sitting in front of an airplane door. You see that window behind him.
Uh-huh.
And just listening to that album, you know how you listen to something and it is dope, but it's like, I don't even want to hear it anymore.
Yeah.
It kind of fucked me up like that. And as I'm landing in North Carolina, you know what I'm saying, the album was actually going off because I had listened to a few different things, and it was just like, damn, man. It's just
tough.
bad. And we've talked about like drug abuse and things like that here and there on the show, and it's just sad that we're losing so many people to it. I don't know.
There was a kid in November of 2017, and like I said, I wasn't familiar with his music, or I wasn't familiar with he's a younger kid, Lil Peep, I believe was his name.
Mm-hmm.
I think he also was another artist that, had an overdose situation. And
He died live on like Instagram
that kid,
stream.
yeah.
or
He's young.
something. Yeah.
He's younger than Mac though. He's like 21 years old.
Mm-hmm.
That was November of 2017. So we'll get into that because that was something that Red August brought up. Shout out to Red August. He's in the building as well. We talked about the effects of that in terms of what these artists go through. But I want to give Helicon a chance as well. If I'm not familiar. We didn't talk about if you were familiar with Mac or not, but your thoughts just overall if you were familiar with him.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I was familiar with him, and I mean, of course, as a DJ and as whatever. I mean, I'm familiar with a lot of artists, but then there's a lot of artists like that where I wasn't necessarily like a follower or like a like a devoted fan where I'm like checking all of his work, but I'd throw in some of his stuff and sets and things like that here and there. But I think just on a more human note, or just maybe a more like kind of the culture and just the humanity nature of it, I think what we find is that even if you're not personally attached to it, you just look at a young man or a young woman or whatever who's whose life is taken away tragically. So when you hear of an art, because we, obviously, especially in the social media world, and we have all these artists because of the age that we're all at now, like that we grew up with, or even that our parents' generation grew up with, that have been passing on in the last, say 5 or 10 years. So you're hearing like, oh, it's so sad that so-and-so passed away. But in some cases, they're like 85 or whatever. So you're like, well, they've lived their life. But when you hear of someone who's 26, it's like,
that's tough.
That is tough, man. Like this kid could have really soared to another level, particularly as you saw him develop over the, so when you see any artist or any athlete, when you look at over the years, the athletes we've seen that's happened, like Len Bias is a great example that I remember. When you see these people like that, where you're like, yo, you really have no idea what they could have developed into. And it was just, it's just one of those things that's just not fair. But I think to Lone's point and to Terry's point as well, that we're talking about something that's very prevalent in the music and entertainment industry, which is mental health and stress and a lifestyle that's not sustainable.
Mm-hmm.
And when people of any, Prince, when people of any age really turn to drugs to solve their problems, it's one thing to go out and have a good time, but when that's like your lifestyle, and then you're trying to add in touring and recording and collaborating with, you're talking about just a lifestyle and a schedule that most people don't understand how hard it is to keep up with.
Red August actually brought this point up through a conversation we were having outside of us going on, and it actually made me think to look at it from an artist standpoint. And he was kind of talking about kind of what Helicon said, or you actually jumped into what I was going to say next. But I think sometimes people that are not artists and just the general consumer, the general fan, I don't think they truly understand what you just said in terms of what it takes, the ups and downs when you're creative. Like when you get in that low place and you're dependent upon to be able to put something out, like put product out, or, you got people that are dependent on you at your website or your blog or whatever. And then sometimes people turn to certain things to kind of cope with those downs until they get out of the funk. You know what I'm saying? Like, I can see that from an artist standpoint, from a DJ standpoint. We understand that being creatives, but I don't know if everybody truly understands what some of these people are going through. And I guess it's two-part, because I'm not sure, has it heightened? Like, are more people starting to, I guess, just come out and actually have these issues? We're in an era of trolling. So sometimes people say they got mental issues, they got this or that going on. I'm kind of like, man, I don't know. But then you see somebody that passes away, or the kid that was on Instagram or I think we said Instagram, that went through that situation. To me, I'm kind of juggling things like that. But Lone, I'm going to come to you. Just kind of talk about that as a whole. Like, do you see my point when I say we can relate as an artist in terms of the ups and downs, being creatives?
Yeah. I don't know if it's necessarily just a creative thing, but I do see it more in creatives.
Well, I'm just speaking in terms of what's more relatable.
No, I'm
the artist.
That's just my answer.
I got you.
It's like, yeah, I think yes, but I think it is more prevalent in creatives. I think it's more prevalent in people that are more empathetic, that feel more. People that and a lot of times those people are artists. So one thing that a lot of us turn to. So I'll just give an example for myself. So I do a lot of those things you say. So I'm a performer, I'm a recording artist, I'm a producer, I run a blog, I do all these things that I keep myself busy a lot of times. But I definitely have highs and lows. Definitely, and I've talked about it before on the show. One thing that is always an extreme high and an extreme low right next to each other is really tough sometimes. And I used to get it from performing. So if, let's say,
the high.
Yeah. It's like the high, let's say we put out an album, we have a string of events, maybe it's a big event too, where there's a lot of people there, maybe a festival or something.
Right.
And then that's over. And, I used to have this conversation with my ex sometimes, like, you would think that in that moment, when something major has happened, that you would have this feeling of accomplishment. And mine would just be, well, now what?
Yeah.
And it took me all the way down. And it's done that. It's happened multiple times where people have been like, well, yeah, you just accomplished all this great stuff. It's like, yeah, I get that. But it's like this feeling of like, well, what else? That's all there is.
Like, you know what the hardest part about going on tour?
Well, coming
off tour.
Yeah. Because then it's like, okay, now what?
The reality.
Did I accomplish everything? Were my expectations too high? And then you're dealing with all those things. And so to take it a step further, I think a lot of times it has to do with expectations. I think it has a lot of times with us investing our emotions into external things as opposed to internal things.
Now, expectations from an artist standpoint?
Expectations for ourselves.
Okay.
So if I'm working on this album, working on this thing because I know I'm going to get a high from this. I know that once I do all these things, it's going to feel this way.
Yeah.
I know eventually that, not all the times, but sometimes you know that you do certain things because you're going to get a high from them. Me saying that I'm working on music and I'm going to do all these things is my addiction. So if we're talking about addictions, people have different addictions in different ways. Some people can be addicted to alcohol or addicted to pills, or in Mac's case, mixing drugs or whatever he did. I don't necessarily think that he meant to die. I don't know.
In my opinion, I would agree.
I don't know, but like he could have just
like what he was saying. It kind of was like you were saying, a coping mechanism. Because he was saying that smoking weed wasn't doing it for him like he wanted it to anymore.
Yeah, I heard you say that earlier. Yeah,
it created paranoia for him. So he began finding other drugs in order to replace that feeling.
The high.
The high and the empty feeling that he has. You know what I'm saying? And to your point, as far as after you come home from a tour, or like he said, like Helicon said, or like you've done creating or whatnot, you're chasing that high, and you're only as good as your last hit.
Right.
So if you're in a position like Mac Miller, other musicians, they always, like a lot of the main popular musicians out there, we've seen documentaries of like Ray Charles and everybody knows Parliament Funkadelic,
good names.
The Doors, who else?
Well, Nirvana.
Kurt Cobain.
Nirvana. Yeah.
It's
Janis,
all they're all very similar, and all these people are actually close in age. We were talking about that earlier too.
Yeah.
27.
27.
Yeah, 27 Club. It's just I think it's something that people get trapped into, you're competing with yourself, and at the same time you're dealing with your mental demons, and you're trying to pretty much explain yourself through your music. Then your music does so well, you have to top that music. So in turn, I think a lot of people go and create more demons in order to kind of fix the ones that they just, pretty much expelled.
Right.
If that makes sense to you.
It becomes a cycle.
Right.
It's a cycle.
It becomes a cycle.
And absolutely, I agree with all, because what we're talking about right now is a very personal relationship with your art, or with, the creative process, and then the highs and lows of that cycle. And so all of it, basically everyone in this room can attest to what that feeling is being in a top-notch performance, or when the crowd's really into it. There's truly nothing like it.
Priceless.
And when you take that to the next level, and you're talking about larger crowds and more cities and international performances and things like that, you're doing something that like athletes are envious of. It's in my opinion like the pinnacle of what one can accomplish in this life. Is
rockstar level.
Yeah. Exactly. Basically being a rock star. And now you have kids growing up, they don't want to be police and firemen and doctors, they want to be rock stars, because it's the most epic ultimate thing you can do. But it comes at a price. And everything that we've talked about again is like this very personal relationship with all those things. But then you have these other factors that, again, like we talked about, most people don't understand, which is like the business side of it and the relationships with labels and management and venues. And there's so many depths to it that people don't realize how much pressure it puts on people like that. Like, we need you to get out and do this, or, and then you have the relationships with fans, and then how much more under a microscope that is these days with social media. And then you could have someone who's real sensitive to things. There's different personality types, right? There are some people who are like, I don't really give a fuck what anyone says about me. But then there's people who are like, yo, I'm just sitting here reading all these people hating on me. And that can really impact a person mentally.
Eminem just dropped an album based off that.
Right.
And that's
facts.
Yeah.
So, nobody knows what he was. He might have been sensitive to that. All of these things combined to kind of bring some closure to my point there is that, again, the average person, the average fan, the average person who works a regular job or whatever has no idea the pressure and the lifestyle that somebody like that lives.
Right.
Yeah.
They have no idea. And a lot of times, drugs and alcohol, plus you have just the fact that people like this are essentially given the red carpet everywhere they go.
Exactly.
Easy
It's
for
like,
them.
He
what do you
brought that
want?
point
Well,
up,
I want a case of vodka in my green room. Done.
Mhm.
You
That
know,
only enhances the high.
they show up in town and it's like, send someone out to get me XYZ. Done. Because nobody's going to be like, no.
Exactly. And he brought
They're
that point
getting it
up
for
as
him.
far as him having this excessive money.
Mm.
So it's like
It's the money.
I can
just the
pretty
access.
much do whatever I want to do. So since weed isn't working,
Right.
I'm going to spend more money to reach the high that I'm trying to get.
Yep.
And essentially it's like a gift and a curse. Because if you're somebody like that does drugs, or, and I hate to say that weed is a gateway drug, because I mean that's a debatable,
Right.
you know what I'm saying,
It's
situation
subjective,
right
yeah.
there. It's very subjective, because it honestly depends on the person.
Mhm.
And it depends on how you're trying to feel, because like some people say weed may make them paranoid. Some folks may just be like, well, I'm just not going to smoke weed. I'm not going to do anything.
Right.
Whereas the other person is like, well, I still want to be high. So I need to find something that's going to get me high but not make me paranoid.
Right.
Or tired or whatever.
Or tired.
you know.
Exactly.
Yep.
And I mean, you got the different types of weed that can either make you hype or make you kind of low. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
But it's the individual. And if somebody is using that to create, is going to make you look at different avenues in order to find that kind of creative bug or whatever you're searching for. You know, I don't know.
Well, plus, you brought up, like you mentioned, the Doors, and there's been some other artists like that who have been, some of those stories have kind of been somewhat, I don't know, glamorized, or maybe just like brought into like, film and other things like that, where they've sort of illustrated the accessibility factor, and how when artists like that show up into places, it's like people are like essentially just like throwing drugs and alcohol at them, like, yo, come to this party. So it's like you have to essentially have like a military discipline to live as an artist like that, and not get caught up in that.
You have
in
to have your
some
shit
way.
together.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
and have people around you that are.
So
that
how many
are
people
looking-
do you know when you
know.
start thinking of all these people who are very mentally stable and strong, have their shit together, and can say no to things, and then keep up with the schedule like that and maintain all those things? I mean, that's a
I mean,
That's
I
a
hate
lot.
to bring light to the situation, but we've all seen 𝐷eWe Cox.
right.
You know what I'm saying? And how that kind of
Yeah.
transpired.
Yep.
And I mean, and that was a comedy movie.
Right.
Yeah.
But there's always some truth in there that you can find.
Plus, I can just tell you again, like from personal experience, like when we've gone and done shows where it's like you're in some other town and people are like, yo, why don't you come to this after party?
Yeah.
And there's going to be this. And,
Yeah.
and you're like, well, I mean, we appreciate that, but we got to drive to the next town, because
Right.
we're not in that situation where it's like, yo, get the limo to take us to this party, So when you think about people who are like, yeah, that's cool, I'll just have our jet take us to,
Yeah.
Yeah. I
And
think
then Mac was actually one of the first artists to actually document his rise. You know what I'm saying? Because I think when he first came out, he was like 17.
Yeah, he started young.
Yeah, so
Real
this
young.
he
was
was
in the
literally a
age
kid
of
when he,
MySpace and
It's got a project called
Facebook.
Kids.
Yep.
Yeah, definitely. And he kind of set the standard for some of the artists that came after him.
Mhm.
And essentially just constantly trying to top what he's doing. So
Yeah, that's tough, man. And when you think about him, it just always brings up a point that we've talked about in the past. We've talked about how artists use this to, I guess you could say, to an advantage in terms of, the bottom line when people want to sell records. We've talked about that. Like they're gonna rap about what they're gonna rap about in order to get what they need to get. There's an artist named Russ, who I'm not that familiar with, right? But he was on the Breakfast Club and they talked about Mac. They brought up Mac Miller, and he talked about the drug use and the promotion of it. And he's like, yeah, man, me and my friends, we might smoke weed here and there, but we really don't put it in the music like that. We just talk about it here and there. But he said he saw artists that were actually putting like merch out that was promoting the lean and the drip or whatever you call it.
definitely.
And I'm like, I hadn't thought about that, but it kind of comes circle of life. We always laugh about the circle of life, but we talk about people that promote certain things. I wasn't aware that there was merch that's actually out here promoting, you know what I'm saying, some of the drugs and some of the things that I was sleep on the merch part. That's why I brought it up, because I wanted to ask y'all, were y'all aware, or if you even knew that this fad was going on. I would sleep on the merch.
Like you knew it was in the music, but
I didn't know it spilled over to the merch.
There's cats here who actually do that.
Oh, word. Okay.
Definitely.
Okay. I would sleep.
I mean, the drug culture period, and it's weird because Mos Def said this years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Hip hop went from selling crack to smoking it.
Mm-hmm.
And you can take smoking crack however you want to. I mean,
That's a metaphor, but still.
Definitely. It's drug related regardless.
Right.
You have artists or rappers or whatnot that will rap about the use of drugs, but they don't even use it themselves.
Future said it.
But they'll make these albums and mixtapes and things to influence those that are doing drugs.
Right.
And it's kind of based off of kind of like a recipe, because you think about it, DJ Screw had the Screwed Up Tales that he dropped all the time. That was just promoting pretty much lean. You know what I'm saying? I mean, that's what it was
there's
doing.
a whole genre of artists.
Yeah, there's a whole subculture of
that's
of
what
that.
Heavy in the South.
Yeah,
heavy in the
real
South.
heavy.
And I think people seen how popular that was getting, and they started using it in order to pretty much influence fans or whatnot, and they're not even using the drugs. So you're influencing people to do this said drug or whatnot, and I just think that's irresponsible on your part. If you actually have a problem, I mean, you have a problem, but at the same time and in the same token, if you're not out there like that, I don't think that's responsible for you to be pretty much making music to influence somebody else to do something.
Let me ask you this. I want to throw this out here. I know Joe. We talked about Joe Budden last episode or whatever. He's got a new show that was popping. That actually was pretty dope. I think it's called State of the Cult. I can't remember. I don't want to misquote it, but they mentioned, or someone brought up the concept of the drug use in the 90s versus now. Is there a comparison? Was it more drastic? Now, I remember, gin and juice, everybody's kicking it. We knew Dre smoked weed. They had the chronic hats, right?
Everybody smokes weed.
Everybody smoked weed. Well, I know what you mean, but it was known that that's what was popping, right?
Right.
So I don't remember any artists in that what I call the golden era when we were growing up, in terms of just overdose here, overdose there. Now, I could be wrong when I say that, but I think it is more severe now than when it was back then. In
hip hop.
In hip hop only. And I'm coming to Helicon because you didn't get in on the last go around. What do you think about that? Like, do you think it is more severe now in terms of the promotion of the drugs? We talked about the merch, we talked about the records, we talked about the concept as a whole. Is that more severe now and more detrimental now to the people that listen to it, to the fans, versus when we came up? I know that's a loaded question, but
yeah, and I'm gonna say yes, and I'm generally not the person who would say yes to that. But here's why I'm gonna say that. Number one, if we're gonna talk about the era that we grew up in, and let's just talk about like the golden era of hip hop. People were not overdosing on Heineken and weed.
No.
Okay. I couldn't say it any better.
Now you have sort of this, like we referred to, there's this sort of whole subgenre of hip hop that's essentially about lean. Whether or not those artists are using that, we talked about this before we started the recording, that lean, you can make it this cute little drink and put a Jolly Rancher in it. It's heroin in a cup, okay?
Facts.
Essentially.
You're not exempt from being a junkie if you're addicted to lean. You are not exempt from the risks that are associated with overdosing or having a problem with that just because it's poured in a cup with Sprite and tastes good.
Right.
You know, you're just drinking it instead of consuming it another way. Then you also have other hip hop. And again, whether or not these artists are supporting this or using it, it is in their material. You're talking about music and art that is promoting a different level of drug use than the blunt smoking that we grew up listening to, basically.
I could dig
Nobody
I could
back
dig
then
that.
was like glorifying smoking crack.
They weren't glorifying it. In fact,
You know,
most hip hop in the era that
That's
we're talking
fair.
about, they were like, yeah, I smoke weed. Yeah, I sit and drink Heineken with my friends, but I don't smoke crack. You know, like they were making fun of that. Like you're
Crack
people,
is whack.
crackheads. Crack is
Actually
what,
was popular
or they
back
were making
then.
fun of crackheads. Like it was not cool to do that. And you know, I mean, they're like cocaine was
There was
definitely
a few
you know,
references, like
yeah.
as far as like Method Man. I mean, his album was called 𝗀𝐿𝐴. For
Right.
those who don't know what 𝗀𝐿 is lace it backwards.
Yeah.
So essentially that's sprinkling cocaine into your blunt.
Put a pin in that, Red August. That's deep
Biggie
right there.
actually had a couple references as well, but it wasn't the whole entire. The reason for them making the music wasn't about that. You know what I'm saying?
That's the point. That's the
And
point.
That was a off the record. I like to party a little bit type
Right.
of thing, you know.
but
Right.
but now we're getting into a different conversation because now anybody can make music about anything, and people are just wanting to make music for the social culture and what people are going to pay attention to.
Right.
That's a
and-
fact.
And so, you know, it's just different. Would be my answer to that.
But you know, to kind of answer your question, you know, is this music influencing people to do this? Let's be honest. The people outside of hip hop, the vocal critics of hip hop, what's one thing they've always said? It's a bad influence on young people.
That's exactly why I said detrimental to your point about
Yeah.
That's the
detrimental
one
to
thing
to
critics of hip
consumer.
hop have always said. It's a bad influence, whether it's the violence or the misogyny
Yep.
or the drug use or whatever. So, you know, I mean, do those people have a point? Sure. I mean, are they right about all that stuff? No.
Yeah, to a certain extent.
To a certain extent. So, but are artists going to start claiming responsibility for this? Are artists going to come out and say, hey, that's cool that you like to party, but you need to be careful if you're doing these things? No, because that doesn't
see it.
sell.
I don't see it because
That's not
it'll,
part of the game. you
it'll
know?
affect the bottom line. So I don't
I mean,
see it.
that's just because the Ice Cube style artists don't sell right now
Right.
as like a Future or
Right.
or somebody on some bullshit like a 6ix9ine is doing. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
That's not.
There are a few
It's not
examples.
popular
Yeah.
for
There's
them
few
to sell
examples of
right now.
artists today that can make it without talking about those topics.
Right. Exactly. Because like if you think
You
about
basically
back
gotta
in the
be
day,
Drake.
exactly, Drake is definitely the one.
He's the one who can never. Drake could never curse in a song and sell records.
Facts.
Mhm. He's at that level now.
Yep.
But back in the day, you had people that were socially conscious, and regardless of the content of their music, when they did interviews and you sit and actually talk to these cats, they were dropping knowledge on you. They was dropping knowledge on you in the music as well.
Right.
But it's almost taboo now to drop knowledge on somebody in music. People say it's boring now. I don't want to learn anything. That's boring. I want to party up all the time. And this is just a moment that we live in. It comes and it goes. There's going to be a time where the more conscious MC, the person that's spitting, is going to come back to the forefront or whatnot. But it's just the era that we're in right now.
Do you think the forefront? I guess I would challenge the idea of forefront versus the majority. When I say we'll have a handful that are out there, but it won't. I don't think it's going to come back around to be the majority.
I don't know, man. I mean,
like I said, that's
times
wishful thinking would say it would, but I don't know if it's going to be to the point where it's like the forefront or the majority, I should say.
I don't know.
I hope I'm
can't-
wrong. but
I can't really call it like that as far as that's concerned, but I kind of can see a shift a little bit right now, honestly.
Okay.
I really can. I mean, you do have a lot of the same type stuff on the radio, but
I mean,
the
everything.
radio was never the big influencer. It was more the music channels, and the music channels don't give you anything now.
I can
so.
agree with that.
Yeah, everything moves, and eventually stuff becomes old and stale.
Right.
Right.
And so, you know, cycles in that way of speaking about it.
Even Drake's not rapping the same way he rapped when he first came out.
Not even
Drake
close.
started as a backpacker. Then he kind of moved onto that super duper flow, you know, the one
Yeah.
that him and Big Sean and Nicki Minaj, all of them was kind of using that same flow. That flow is gone now. The same thing is going to happen with this Migos style flow.
Yeah.
And then same thing is going to happen with what's his name, the kid with the crazy hair, not 6ix9ine, the other one.
I'm
the
lost.
one J. Cole ain't fucking with.
Lil
I guess they
Pump.
cool now. Yeah.
Peep. Lil
Lil
Pump.
Pump. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
But I mean, and speaking of J. Cole, he had a real intimate kind of shout out about Mac Miller because his album was called King Overdose or Kids on Drugs, or I can't remember the other title of his album, but
KOD.
Yeah.
Essentially. The reason why he dropped that album is pretty much in reference to the drug culture in hip hop right now, and how kids are looking up to these artists on drugs and they're getting turned out, things like that. And he really gave like kind of, not, I wouldn't say a sermon, but he addressed the crowd as far as that's concerned, and actually teared up about it. Because I mean, it's serious. You know what I'm saying?
DJ Envy on the Breakfast Club actually said his daughter now tells him like it's pretty much common knowledge that it's going to be, he said like heavy drugs like coke and that type of stuff that's going to be at parties, you know what I'm saying, that she'll attend. But he was just thankful that she actually was like, yo, Dad, I'm not into this. I'm just letting you know it's common knowledge now. This was popping. They out here on this lean.
That's
whatever.
been popping though.
No, but what I'm saying is, to your point, I feel you, but I think it's just crazy to think some of the stuff that's out here now, like it's normal, like the normalization of it's like, yo, yeah, this gonna be here. So I'm just letting you know, Dad, like this is gonna be here.
I think it just, I mean, normalization changes throughout time. It was just different.
I agree.
So the last thing that I'll say about that is that, you know, I know we're talking about drugs and drug culture and all that stuff, but to me, it's more of an issue it's more of a mental health issue to me than it is a drug issue.
I can dig it.
And it's more of a coping mechanism because, again, we talked about this in episodes past. People address their addictions in different ways, and they cope with things in different ways. Some people cope with drugs. Some people cope with just a bunch of different
With
ways.
work, some people use women.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's just
or men. You know what I'm saying?
exactly.
Get addicted to about anything.
Mhm.
And that's really the underlining portion of it. You know, like that's why people go to drugs. That's why people continue to cope. Granted, it can be recreational and it can get out of control. But once it becomes that, you know, it's, if you know how to cope with your emotions a little bit better, you're honest with them, it's easier to move in those situations, I think, from my experience. So
Yeah, that's wisdom. Yeah, Lone. That's definitely wisdom right there. I want to throw it to Helicon real quick before we get out of here. Talk about Orange and what's going on with Indianapolis. We got the hats out. I actually got one of these.
Yeah,
I'm excited.
Yeah. Well, thank you for switching to a little bit lighter note.
Yes,
but
we're gonna end on a positive
to
note,
kind of wrap
brother.
all that up. Like, if anyone who's listening needs help or has struggles like that, make sure you turn to, like, whether it's people you love you or even anonymous resources or whatever. Like, the help is out there. Like,
Please do.
Don't let it take you, because there's people who care about you, and you can make
Absolutely.
an impact in this world. So, speaking of that, we like to make an impact with this little event that I created called Orange. In fact, the funny thing is, the last time I was on as a guest on this show, it was back in May.
Yep.
And it came up, and Jay Diff was like, "Yo, like, you know, it's missed. You know, like, you know, we loved Orange," and we announced the next week, and I was really struggling to keep my lips sealed, but we announced the next week that we're bringing it back.
Mhm.
So for those who don't know, Orange is a concept that a friend of mine and I came up with in 2002, basically to have contemporary art and kind of original music and different creative types and things like that, kind of, you know, showcase for one night for adults, you know, 21 and over. So it could be like a party, you know, not to get back to the partying thing, but anyway, we wanted to make it really fun and high energy and all that. So we luckily, and kind of what became our brand and identity was we were able to do this in a vacant warehouse, essentially. And so that
Right.
kind of was the theme that we followed year after year. One of the reasons that we took a little break in 2014 is that we were running out of these opportunities to host this event in these types of spaces. But this year we were able to get a very special opportunity, like a once in a lifetime type of thing, to host this in what most people know as the old Coke bottling plant. So it's down at Mass Ave College. It's already underway, like kind of getting torn up and turned into this big redevelopment. But next Saturday, September 22nd, we're bringing it back for the 14th event. It's the last Orange from what we know. Just again, we're kind of running out of this chance to do this, but we've got all kinds of art, bands. We talked about like 𝗀𝗲𝗀𝗱 is playing. Multiple DJs, Top Speed, Buck Rogers is coming back in town, Phenom's coming back in town, Axon Jackson, Lemmy Vice, Gabby, Limelight. I mean, it's like all the homies and
That's
all.
a dope
in my
lineup.
opinion, like some of the best in town. And then from the visual art perspective, it's kind of the same thing. It's like really some of the best talent in this area, and it's in this amazing building. This kind of old industrial building right on Mass Ave. But orangeindie.com, and it's Orange with a J. It's the 14th and final year, multiple people involved. I mean, too many to mention, but I want you guys to also talk about what you have planned that night, because I think that's very special.
Okay.
Do work, Lone.
Well,
do work.
Well, this will be it just so happened that this actually falls on our 100th episode.
Yes.
So we talked with Ryan, and we're actually going to shoot our 100th episode at Orange. So it's going to be I'm thinking it's going to be an extended episode, because Orange is from 8 to 12?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we're probably going to be at least 2 hours in there, I would say.
Okay.
But yeah, we're going to do a live show there. It's going to be fun.
You'll be there all night, but recording and doing the show
Absolutely.
for 2 hours.
Yeah, probably, or whatever we feel like, I guess.
Yeah, I mean,
Who knows? But we're going to have a
we might
variety.
have a few founders in
Look
us.
for
So
that.
Maybe a few
it depends
founders.
on what
Shout
happens.
Shout out to founders. Yeah.
One of the
shout out.
sponsors for the Orange event, as well as No Bad Ideas and Coleman
And
Dental.
come on down. Thank you all.
And a whole bunch of others. But yeah, we'll be there set up. So our goal is to set up with maybe a topic bowl, have people put topics in, us sit and have our regular conversations, but maybe the head of the table will be a variety of guests, and maybe we'll just kind of keep it flowing throughout the night. So
I personally can't wait to not only have you all doing that there, I can't wait for the event in general. I have always, every year, emphasized this. It's truly something you do not want to miss. I think it's I feel the same way about Treese, and shout out to Treese. I'm so sad I couldn't be there this year, but Indianapolis has some amazing assets from a event and creative community standpoint. And I believe personally, obviously I'm biased, that Orange is one of them. I think it's something that all the type of people that we know and that appreciate and contribute to the arts and culture of the city should be at, if they're not involved with it already.
Definitely.
absolutely.
And this will be my first Orange.
I'm so excited for you to
been,
experience it.
Yeah, I'm excited, man. They've told me about the ones that you guys had in the past.
Our old table here was actually one of the custom boards that we did for one of Orange. We made a custom recording booth.
Nice.
And this is actually one of the boards from it.
Yeah,
Nice.
bringing down the band, just for those who don't know, has been involved with Orange in many aspects over the years, so and same thing with a lot of the artists that are kind of affiliated with this whole crew. So I mean, it's it runs deep. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
Orange has always been a spectacle.
Nice.
There's always
definitely.
there's always something going on that you won't see on your average Saturday night.
Absolutely
Word.
true.
There's
And that you
always
probably
something,
won't forget,
Right.
Like
And
you're gonna
there's
be talking about it for
Indeed. It's always like some interactive things going on.
Yeah.
Some dope artists. Like I've actually bought art from Orange on a few different occasions, because like you see just so much dope shit, and it's like things will grab you. You'll buy something, then you walk to the next booth and you be like, damn, that's dope too.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? And it's
Yeah.
you connect with these artists or whatnot, and eventually, you know what I'm saying, you tell people about it and you may connect with them later, but it's always a good time.
I actually met Dr. Coleman from Coleman Dental at Orange.
Yeah, I remember
So-
they had like a
I gotta
it
meet
was like
Dr.
a
Coleman.
green screen
It
or
was like
something.
the
they had
smile.
one.
Yeah, it was like a show your smile that
Yeah,
turned into
yeah.
like a fast time
Yeah.
lapse video.
Yeah.
And then you would recognize some of the faces. You
Yeah.
know, like, oh, there's
I think I
Rusty.
was in there somewhere, maybe.
Yeah.
I've yet to meet Dr. Coleman, so
But that's the thing with Orange, is like it's this whole experience. There's so many different artists and musicians. So, but that's sort of what you think of like in a traditional, like, okay, it's a concert, it's an art show, whatever. But at Orange, everybody kind of ratchets up their participation to a different level and focuses on being interactive and being really creative with their space or their show or whatever. And then, like you said, it's this opportunity for so many different people to connect. And maybe you see an artist that you like and they make a piece for you that you buy the next week, or you meet someone who becomes a sponsor of something you're doing, or, I mean, the opportunities are endless there because of the energy and the people that are there. So,
Indeed.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
September 22nd, come out and rock with us at Orange. We're gonna have a good time. New Old Heads will be in the building.
Word.
Episode 100.
Yes.
100.
Can we
We're gonna
light
celebrate.
fireworks and shit in there?
we did that at Orange one year. The year that 𝗀𝗲𝘄 passed, we did like a big fireworks
Word,
show, like a
word.
tribute from the roof of the building that night. Like I can't even believe we did it, but I mean it was something, man.
This sounds like it's gonna be a good time. So
How much are tickets?
$20 at the door.
Okay.
You can get them at our peel parties. We got coming one actually. So the night that this episode will be coming out at the new Just Pop In location,
Okay.
we'll have discount tickets at that. And then also, I should mention, next Tuesday at Coaches for Take That Tuesday will be kind of another like the final Orange Peel party.
Nice.
We'll have some of our people that are performing DJing that night, and we'll have pre-sale tickets at that as well. Otherwise,
Awesome.
they're $20 at the door, or you can go to orangeindy.com and find out more about that.
Word.
I can dig it.
Don't miss it.
All right, so we're gonna wrap up episode 98 there. Shout out to our sponsors as always, Coleman Dental, 317-255-8546. Shout out to bringingdowntheband.com, Printfinity, as well as Team Backpack. We appreciate you guys as well. Did I miss anything?
Patreon, man.
Shout out to Patreon. Matter of fact, you got to sign up for our Patreon, www.patreon.com/New Old Heads. We got a lot of dope stuff coming up. I'm telling y'all, it starts at $1.
We got a new sponsor coming on board soon too. So
Yes,
Indeed.
stay tuned for that announcement. We got a couple new things going on.
Support
And,
the
you
cause.
You can get an orange hat. by being a
Yes.
supporter.
We will be flipping those orange hats. Jay Moore sucks at this game. And Jay Diff had nothing to do with Orange coming back for 2018. We'll see y'all next week. Peace.
I just put it out in the atmosphere. That's all. You know,
Okay.
you just speak it into existence.
I had to hate a little bit. I had to hate a little bit. We'll see y'all next week.
Yeah.